The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. Today I'm absolutely over the moon and splashing around like a duck in water to have Joe Stone with me, who is CEO. Is that your title, Joe?
I think it's managing director, but I'll take CEO, that's fine.
Managing director of Puddle Ducks. Now, I love the name for a start. I love your branding. Can you tell everybody what Puddle Ducks does, please?
Yes. Hi. We teach babies and children to swim across the UK. So yes, it's a nice splashing business, as you say.
Oh, it's just lovely. So I came across you way back in the franchise world, and then I heard you talk. Was it a few months ago now in Manchester, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah, March time, I think.
Yeah. And I was absolutely fascinated by your story. Can you share with our listeners the origin story of Puddle Ducks? Because it's just lovely.
Yes. So I met my business partner. We both had babies on the same day, both girls, both weighed the same amount and almost had the same name, Emma, my daughter Emma, and Tracy's daughter Ella. And from that moment forward, we did all sorts of things together. And one of the things that we did was taking our babies swimming, and we just loved all those moments of shared joy and happiness with the babies. And I guess from the birth of our babies, little did we know that less than a year later would be the birth of our business. And it's just grown from there. We saw a gap in the market and decided to take it forward from there, really. Took the plunge in 2002. Tracy went in the very first teacher training course while I was away on holiday. While I was away on holiday, I saw a boat, and that boat was called Puddle Ducks. And I thought, that immediately, it struck a chord with me. And I thought, that's fun and that's fluffy and that's appealing. And that's a perfect name for a product where the kids are having so much fun that they don't realise that they're learning to swim. So we use research in aquatics and in child development, and with all the assets and everything that we had available, we started running classes and produced an unrivaled product. And I guess it was always our ambition to be large and successful, and we always made everything so sustainable. So look back, kind of that's where it was 20 years ago. Looking forward now, we've now got it's about 31 franchisees across the UK.
Wow.
25,000 children are swimming at our classes each week.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I'm fascinated that you both knew you wanted to create something big right from the beginning. What was that about? Explain that, because not everybody starts out doing that or thinking like that.
Well, at the time, we'd both given up some corporate careers in blue chip companies, so we just wanted to make sure that we wanted to challenge ourselves, and it certainly wasn't a hobby for us, but we also wanted to match the salaries that we'd been achieving in our corporate careers. So I guess financially that was our goal, but also at the same time we wanted to be role models for our growing families, and we both ended up having two girls, and just wanted to be there as role models to prove that you could be working and you could have a challenging job and business as well as being a mum. So I guess that's why we knew we always wanted to make it something into the future. It was going to be bigger and better.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There's no reason why you have to keep it small just because you're a mum.
No.
And I, often my kids are older now. Two have left home. I've got one at home still. And in the early days, when you're leaving them at nursery and, you're not necessarily there to do all the pickups and drop-offs, there is an element of going, oh, should I be doing this? And that's what I came back to actually, Jo, which is really interesting, that actually I would quite like to be a role model to show children that you can do this, and that, you know, mum has a serious job and a serious business, and you can have a family. Not easy,
Yes,
but
yes, lots
doable.
of juggling
Yeah.
involved for sure. But looking back, I do feel as though I've had the balance right, and kept the two things separate to some extent. But they've certainly, when they were younger, they were involved in some of the things that we were doing as we were growing the business. So yeah, grown up with the business really.
Yeah.
The
No.
children have, and they're very grown up now.
Are they involved in the business
No,
now? Do they take right?
they're all at university now. My youngest daughter,
Right.
she had a year out before she went to university, and she did work for the business during that time. And she'll probably go and do work in between during school holidays. In fact, both of them do work during school holidays and things. So yes, to an extent, they're involved.
Right. Okay. That's quite nice, actually, to have them there, and see them as the inspiration for it. So, prior to this, had you done any teaching at all? Were you sporty? Were you a swimmer? Where did the sort of the swimming idea come
No
from?
teaching.
Okay.
I did a maths degree, and I worked in IT and computer programming before I had the children. So yeah, very, very different. I've always been very sporty, and very, I make sure what the word is, committed. Once I'm going to do something, I make sure I do it, and do it to the very best of my activities. So if I make sure I run every day or do some kind of exercise every day just to keep fit. And I guess that's helped with the business, with all the tenacity.
Tenacity, I think. Tenacity.
Keeping the business going. But the reason why it was swimming was because it was one of the things that we did when our babies were small, really tiny, taking them swimming, and there were no lessons in the market, certainly not high quality swimming lessons for babies. So it was what made us see a gap in the market, and wanting to spend time with our families. And so we had the choice on when we worked, rather than working, I don't know, part-time with the jobs that we had prior to having the children.
Yeah, definitely. And have you achieved the original vision, or is there still some way to go?
There's always a way to go. When we first set off, we were acting very locally, and we had 2 or 3 swimming pools, and we were growing fairly rapidly in the local area, and we were thinking, well, how can we expand this nationally? And we because of all the local relationships with the customers, with the pools, with the teachers, we decided that franchising was the better way to go, rather than having lots of centres around the UK, which we ran. Interestingly enough, we launched our first centre in the local area where we live just after the pandemic. That's a purpose-built swimming pool. So we've kind of come back to that again, and now we wanted to expand that model so that our franchisees have got those pools and managed pools across the network. So yeah, there's always room for growth, and our next growth area is in building pools, or our franchisees building pools to operate the lessons in.
Okay, so I'm really interested in that you're now going into an area of your franchisees holding fixed assets, quite substantial assets as well, which is a whole mindset shift for your model of franchising. Was that a natural evolution, or do you think that was always in the back of your mind that you wanted to do eventually?
It was most definitely always in the back of our mind. It was just getting the right opportunity to do it and take the plunge, I suppose. And the reason why we've done it now is that, the whole industry is changing, and there's pools being built all over the UK by private businesses such as ourselves, and I think we can't rely on pools. There's a lot of older pools within our infrastructure at the moment, and coming towards the end of their life, pools are closing because it's not cost effective to run the pools because they're not very energy efficient. I think Swim England say that there's 2,000 pools going to close within the next few years, which, right or wrong, we're definitely seeing pools closing because of the high energy costs. So we have to do this slightly different model to succeed and to continue and sustain our model as being a true swimming company, because if we don't change, then I think we won't survive.
I would say that for any business, any business has to evolve and change, otherwise they're going backwards and they don't survive. Definitely not. So I didn't know that about pools, but you're right. A lot of them were built in the Victorian era or the 60s, where the fabric of the buildings weren't that great, and they certainly weren't efficient, were they?
No.
That kind of is a bit of a metaphor for wider society and the provision that councils, and perhaps even you could extend that into the NHS, are having to lean on the private sector more and more, or the private sector are having to step in more and more to pick up the demand. Where do you see sort of swimming going, really, in a wider context?
Well, I think swimming is still very, very popular, and as well as being a really good way of keeping fit, and a safe way of exercising once you know how to swim, obviously. And it opens up lots of other sports for people as well, doesn't it? But it's a key life skill, and I think parents regard that as a really important life skill, that their children should be able to swim. Because if the worst case happens and they do fall in the water, in a river or somewhere, they've got the survival skills to be able to get out of that situation. So I think swimming is really popular for all those reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any franchises in Scotland?
Yes, we've got a lady in Glasgow who's doing very, very well at the moment. Yes.
Oh, good. Great. Okay, because just when my kids were growing up, I hadn't come across you, but it was exactly the sort of thing that I would have taken my kids to. I took them to the music.
She's only just launched, actually, in the last couple of years.
Ah, right. Brilliant. So, fantastic. All right. So over the past few decades, has there been any point where you've nearly, and excuse the pun, thrown in the towel and gone, right, that's it, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few kind of key moments where things have been challenging. I guess the first one was right in the early days when we were running our business locally. We were running out of what turned out to be just one pool at the time. We'd got a couple of hundred customers all running out of this one pool, and we just turned up to lessons one day, and the caretaker came in and said, "That's it. You can't teach here anymore. I'm not happy dealing with all the chemical levels and everything like that." So within with a day's notice, pretty much, we couldn't run our lessons, and we were there sort of at the kitchen table writing all the checks out to refunds out to customers and thinking, well, that's it. We've lost our only pool. Where's it going to go next? And after a pretty fraught couple of weeks, we actually ended up with another pool, which it offered lots more hours for us, and gave us the opportunity to bring other teachers on board so that we could grow our business. So actually it was a blessing in disguise, making us go and look for pools, other pools, alternatives, more quickly. So yeah, you kind of have to take everything as an opportunity, really. Every challenge becomes an opportunity.
It does.
Yeah.
The phrase I have for it, Jo, is that when one door closes, a dirty, great big aircraft carrier door opens.
Yeah.
Because you think it's the end of the world, don't you? And you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? But you're absolutely right. Within the space, not a huge amount of time, something else comes up and you think, actually, this is 100 times better.
Yeah, funnily enough,
Yeah.
exactly the same thing happened to our Glasgow franchisee last week. One of her hotel pools has got issues with costs and energy costs and things. So they were given some notice that she couldn't teach in there any longer. She did a radio interview, I think, and suddenly she's got 6 or 7 new pools all lined up to run her classes. So yeah, amazing for her. And yeah, something
brilliant.
else, another challenge that turned into opportunity.
Absolutely. So your franchise network is growing, it's very strong, and your standards are incredibly high. And you alluded to some of the research that you do behind that. Just talk us through about those standards and that research, because it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so everything that we do, we make sure that we use experts to help us to get to where we need to if we haven't got the internal expertise. We've taken on members of the team that know their area, whether it's marketing or teaching swimming or finance. We've got experts within the team there. And our support, I think, is absolutely brilliant for the franchisees. So we've received 5-star franchisee satisfaction for the last 10 years, which is just it's just amazing. I think we're one of only 4 franchisors to have done that. So we're very proud of that. So it's just making sure that every decision that we make is made so that the franchisees are getting more profitable, or our standards are being maintained and as high as they are, and just to make sure that everybody's successful in their business. So I think that ethical franchising is really helpful in setting our standards as high as they possibly can be. Always looking to improve.
And there are some businesses always, and that there are some businesses out there saying, look, it's only me and my dog at this moment, working out in my back room. How can I afford experts? So how did you do that in the very early days, when obviously small business cash is always, a bit of an issue?
Yeah,
How did you find those experts and engage them?
We knew our numbers. So we knew what money we had to spend, and we certainly chose in the early days. And forever, investment, speculating to accumulate is important. So, if you can manage to invest more of your profits into growing, then that's a really good idea. And we've also been very careful on the suppliers that we've chosen. So having suppliers who already know the franchise industry has really helped us grow as well, and having the right people in at the right time. And perhaps, so we've had almost interview processes going through for suppliers to make sure that we get the right one that we want, that's aligned with our values and our business.
I'm so glad you mentioned values, because that was my next question.
Right.
From your talk, you're very much a values-driven business. You're happy to share with everybody what your values are?
Yeah, so our values, we spoke with our franchisees in the early days and asked them what kind of words what it felt like to work for Puddle Ducks. Unfortunately, they came up with the same words that we wanted them to come with. And our values it fit into a very nice acronym called experts, which fits in with the fact that we're experts in teaching swimming and experts in running businesses. So we're exceeding expectations. We're very professional with everything we do. We're entrepreneurial, we're respectful, and that's particularly important to us, respecting each other. We're trusted, and as a franchise network, we're very supportive. So all of those things run throughout our business, and we use those values to recruit against, whether it's for our suppliers, our franchisees, or our employees. And make sure that those standards are kept as high as they possibly can.
Yeah, one of the challenges businesses have is that they set their stall out with the values, and this is the kind of work I do with businesses. And then it comes to a very tough commercial decision where perhaps, I don't know, a franchisee isn't operating according to your values, but on
Yeah.
paper, on the P&L, they're successful. What does your business do about that?
If we've had to step in a couple of times to protect our whole network, because if somebody is not operating to values and doing things the way they should be, that then adversely affects the brand of particularly their neighbours, but also the whole network. So yes, we unfortunately we have had to step in and make sure that that doesn't continue and find a happy solution, or as happy as we can for all parties involved. It's not an easy decision, but it's one that you have to do as a franchisor.
I think in any business, Jo, and often it's employees, and often it's employees who are bringing in lots of money, but aren't aligned with the values and are creating havoc. And you say, you know, impacting their neighbours in terms of their franchise neighbours, they're impacting other members of their team.
Yes, and you just have to do something about it. Just have to.
Yeah. You really do. No matter how much dosh they say they're bringing in, you absolutely have to do something about it. And I think that's where the wider business, whether it's a franchise or not, sees you operating according to your values, and you immediately get more engagement from the rest of the business. Is that what you found when you kind of,
Yeah, for sure. And because our values then align to the type of business owners that we want to come in, it all works perfectly. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Other challenges that you've had. COVID obviously wasn't that long ago.
No.
Pools closed.
Yes.
I don't want to bring back horrible memories. You've clearly recovered really, really well.
Yes, it was a challenging time, not being able to teach, no income for the business for the best part of a year, really. And thank goodness for the furlough scheme and the self-employed scheme, because that kept us afloat. I'm quite sure we just had a small team helping franchisees during that time. But I'm happy to say that since COVID, we've grown our business by 20% in terms of customer numbers. So people are coming back and they're happy to come swimming now. So yeah, we've got out of it through the other end. And in fact, during that time, during lockdown, we took the time to build our own pool. So we signed the contracts just before the pandemic started. And yeah, great timing. and actually started the build about 9 months into the pandemic. So by August 2021, we launched our first pool in Northwich, which all went very well.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, what difference does that make to the franchisee in terms of their prospects and profitability?
It basically means that probably 4 or 5 years of growth happens in terms of customer numbers in the space of a month. So that's quite a lot quicker than they would have done otherwise. And it just means that the customers are getting a much better experience, so that the facilities that they're using match the high standards of the lessons that we're giving, and all other issues that all businesses are facing at the moment, like recruitment and that kind of stuff it's a lot easier, because you have lots more shifts available, which means staff are more willing to come and have a more substantial job. So it definitely makes the franchisee's life a lot easier. Obviously, there's a lot of setting up to do and hard work to get to that stage, but ultimately it means that they're then not relying on third-party businesses for hiring pools out from. So brings them back into control of their business and makes it sustainable into the future.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you do lessons for adults?
No, we don't at the moment. No, we just focus on the children up to, the eldest is usually around about 10ish.
Okay. And any plans to expand the brand? Obviously, you'd probably have to change Puddle Ducks to something else, but
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's always things that we can move on. We have an aquanatal session that goes on for pregnancy, so I suppose we do have adults in the pools at times. But the main core product is the baby in preschool, which is the 0 to 4 or 5, and then the swim academy, which is the school age 4 plus.
Brilliant. Where's the business going? Where are you taking it?
Well, the next stage is to get all of the. Our aim is for every franchise or all their territories to have an owned or a managed pool in them by 2027. So that's
Right.
that's stage one. Okay. And fingers crossed we managed to achieve that with as many franchisees as possible. So having as many
that
owned pools as possible is our target.
That's huge. That's not a lot of time to build quite a lot of pools.
No. Our vision is that we want to have 50,000 customers. So yeah, to have those 50,000 customers, we need to have somewhere for them to swim. That's where we're heading.
I love the fact you're still thinking big. You're still pushing the boundaries. You clearly still have ambition for the business. Do you think that'll ever go away, Jo? Is this built into you? Where does it come from?
I think it's probably built into me. I am a fairly competitive person. I think maybe that's right. That's why. But I think when that stops happening, then that'll be the time to bring somebody else into the MD role.
No. I think it's phenomenal. And is your business partner still involved in the business?
No, sadly, she was quite ill about 5-6 years ago now, and she was in hospital for 6 months or so. So she took a significant amount of time out of the business while she recovered from a very serious illness, and she found it very difficult to come back afterwards, and things weren't the same, and so we had to have adult conversations, and she took the decision to step back, and so she now only works on the board. So we have board meetings 3 or 4 times a year. So she's involved in the kind of high level strategy, but not on the day-to-day running of things as she was prior to her illness. But the team we've got a brilliant team in place that was already there before Tracy's illness and have particularly stepped up since then. So we've got everything that we need in place now. So yeah, it is a very difficult decision for us both, for Tracy to step back, but it was one that it wasn't one that we kind of chose, but it was one we had to make.
Yeah, and I think it's testament to the strength of the foundations that you both put in and the values that the team were able to step up.
Yes.
Again, it's not every business that would have been able to do that with such a significant individual having to step back away from the day-to-day.
Yeah. I think
definitely.
I think in particular, I'm very my leadership style is quite collaborative, and I've empowered the team to sort of make decisions based on boundaries that have been set, and that's worked really, really well within our team. So we've got a really quite I say mature workforce, but that's not the right term. They're not old, but they've been with us for a long while, and they're loyal and very experienced now. So it's working very well.
It's good. I daren't ask this question, but I do ask this question of everybody, and I'm not sure what answer I'm going to get from you, Jo. But if your business had a personality or a character, how would you describe it?
Ooh. It depends on whether you're looking at from the customer's point of view. It's kind of fun and safe. So that it was a personality you wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of outgoing. Yeah, it's probably outgoing, and the product is quite outgoing and fun. The business kind of self-assured, maybe. We don't. Whilst we've got lots of awards and things like that, we just get on with it and do things the absolute best way we can. So I'm trying to think of a good word. We always do things the right way. I'm trying to think of a personality that would match that.
I'm not sure, but there's also humility that from an outsider that I observe. Humility from you is phenomenally successful business, and you're very generous with your time and your thoughts, and I know you give back a lot to the other franchise networks. And I think I don't know who the character would be either, Joe, but there's a definite that quality, that steadfastness, that humility really shines through, and the fun shines through as well. Congratulations on building something and continue to build something that has that, because that's not easy. No. I think it's down to the team that we've brought in and the different characters within it, and particularly the humour. You need to have a laugh every so often, and there's a couple of characters in the team that really help that along, whether it's in the franchise network or in the in our head office team. Yeah. Brilliant. Listen, I wish you all the best, and I'm really excited to see the Puddle Ducks pools springing up all over the UK. I shall watch with interest. Thank you so much for today, Joe. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass, where we make it happen. Grab your seat, let's have